introducing that one?
I mean, I'll let it play out for a little bit.
I'm gasping and
But yeah, okay. So,
bluish tinge.
but you prefer hot water over?
Well, that helps actually. Although Diane will probably beat you to it. She rescued me this morning, so
Right there, the inside.
yeah.
Oh, it's on. Okay, and it goes
I'll
push
get
off.
one of you before they start. Sit.
Good evening, everybody. 5:30. We have quite a few to go through this evening, so thank you all for coming. There's many familiar faces in the audience tonight, so I will use this microphone. Tony and I will be doing some things back and forth, and we'll be asking the questions. So please, you have blue 3x5 cards. If you have questions, please write them and just put them up, and one of us will come by and do that. We'd also ask you that if you have your cell phone, that you put it on vibrate or shut it down. This is being recorded, and so we've asked the candidates to kind of stay in one area, so the videographer, because this is being televised, and people have the form electronically that you have in hard copy in front of you, and so they can submit from there. So we would like you to, if you want to do that, even when you get home, you can do it electronically if you like. Simply go to the district's website, go to the icon that's the superintendent search, and you'll see the form there, and you feel free to fill that out. We've had a busy day already today. We've conducted literally 9 groups of school district staff that have met and greeted all of the candidates, and so their endurance is being tested. We'll give them another opportunity for that endurance today. So again, thank you for coming. We really appreciate your time. We will have approximately 45 minutes with the finalists each, and there will be a short break in between to get set up for the next one, and then we'll do that through probably 8:30 this evening, so to kind of give you an idea on that. So we are not going to introduce the candidates other than the name, and then part of their introduction will be to introduce themselves. So are you all ready? All right, let's get going here. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Jane Staven. Jane?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. I know that you are just recently out of school and you have activities starting with your kids and things that start happening during these summer weeks, and so I really appreciate you taking your time. I'm Jane Stavum, and I would just like to introduce my husband is also here with me. Bruce is in the back, and wave at him. There you go. And he was lucky enough to also spend some time touring the district today and seeing some of the places in your community, so we appreciate that. We are here from Lincoln, Nebraska, and I am currently the Associate Superintendent for Instruction. Do we have a Nebraskan here? Oh, awesome. There's a Husker in the room. That's good. Well, I usually do the test of my hometown, which is Stromsburg, Nebraska. If you Google it, it's the Swede capital of Nebraska. And we battle over that title with another little town in Nebraska, so it's this big war. But there's always somebody in the room who knows somebody from Stromsburg. It's kind of this phenomenon. But anyway, Lincoln, Nebraska, I'm the Associate Superintendent for Instruction, and I oversee 9 different areas in our district, all which have to do with teaching and learning in our school district of nearly 42,000 students. We're a rapidly growing district of about 1,000 kids a year, and many similarities to the Lake Washington School District with opening new schools and having rapid growth and experiencing some of the pressure points that go along with that. It's a great problem to have, though, because that means a community is thriving. It means that people want to be here. And it also means that your school district is a place where people want to come and bring their children. And so in thinking about this position, I understand the importance that healthy school district plays kind of in the vibrancy of the community at large and all of the things that are here that are attracting people to come to this area. So in looking at Lake Washington as an opportunity, I began to notice things like your high achievement and the programming options that you have for students. and the facilities that you've built and have available to students and families. And just started to notice some things that seemed like a good match for some of my experiences in my leadership journey, and some of the things that are attractive to me as you look at where the future of Lake Washington is going. And so it's a school district that is on the move and is ready and poised to do some exciting things, I think, in the future. So that's why I'm here, and hopefully tonight you'll get a little bit of a sense of who I am, and I'll try my best to answer your questions as succinctly as I can, with still giving them some depth so that we have time to get through as many of those things as we can. So with that, I'm ready for the first question, Jim.
One quick note, if you have questions, just raise them up. We have some students that have volunteered, and so they'll come by and pick them up and get them up to us. We will also take the prerogative, oftentimes similar questions come up, and we will consolidate those into one so we can try and get through as many of the questions as we can. No, I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I don't know if
Do I
they
need the
can hear you on
microphone or
TV.
not? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So let me do that. So the first question, I even hate to start this way, but I will. I would like to know how much you know about dyslexia.
Well, I happen to be an expert now on dyslexia because recently, and I use that word expert lightly, but recently Nebraska did a lot of work around some legislation with dyslexia, and a couple of our state senators did kind of a statewide tour of going to different districts and looking at their reading programs and practices. Lincoln was one of those districts where they came and they were very impressed with what we were doing with teaching and learning around reading and reading interventions, but still had some of the frustration about specifically identifying dyslexia as a potential area of struggle for a student that needed more definition and needed more assurances in some of the legislation for how that is identified and then served with students. And so there were some things put into place to remedy that. But in the process, we did a lot of looking at how we look at identification, how we partner with families, what actual definitions are for dyslexia, and what some of the best practices are currently, and looking at some of the things that we are currently doing, as well as some of the training that needed to be put in place. And so I'm a lot farther down that road because of just some recent things in Nebraska, and know that that is something that many students struggle with and need some very specific interventions. But then we have to provide the supports for our interventionists and teachers so that they are well equipped to meet those student needs.
There's
you got another one.
Yeah,
Good job.
there's a second part to this question,
Okay.
and the person that provided this gave it to me early, and she's been very persistent of attending many of our meetings, so I'm going to continue with all the questioning that she has here.
Okay.
She says, keeping in mind that 10 to 20% of the U.S. population has dyslexia, please make your best guess. So this is a quiz. In 2000, what percent of the Texas prison population was determined to have dyslexia?
Do you have the answer?
Yeah, I do.
I am going to say 65%.
That was the same amount I guessed, but we were both wrong.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, at least we're wrong
It's
together.
48%.
Okay.
Now, second part of this question. In 2007, a study found that blank percent of the U.S. entrepreneurs were determined to have dyslexia. What would that percentage be?
I'll go 50%.
Well, we were both wrong. I had a similar,
okay.
35%. So you get some
Yes.
idea now.
And what I think both of those pieces of data show is that sometimes students appear to be struggling academically, but that doesn't mean that they aren't great thinkers and don't have skills that need to be accounted for in other ways for students to show us what they know. And so sometimes those reading struggles get in the way of showing us what students are really capable of, and can be limiting if we're not looking at the whole child and looking at other ways for them to show us what they know.
Next question is, besides graduation rates, what other KPIs do you think are also important to help identify issues and gaps for improvements?
Well, you can take the inverse of the graduation rate and look at a dropout rate. and look at why students are not graduating. And some of the stories behind those students, when you just look at numbers, you don't always get the full story. And looking at why a student isn't graduating, when you find out some of the stories that go with that and some of the barriers that get in a student's way with either some personal difficulties or some challenges that they've had. It might be some factors to do with student mobility. It might be poverty factors. It might just be choice, substance abuse, whatever the whys might be. You can start to dig a little further and then begin to say, okay, where was the point along the way that we could have impacted that trajectory and help them to stay in school? So in my current role, one of the things that we are working heavily on is dropout prevention, but also going and finding those students who are still eligible to return and getting them re-enrolled and adjusting schedules, doing some online learning and things that help them stay on track to graduate, even if it isn't within that 4-year cohort.
Next question is, what is your definition of education equity?
It's a big question. Everybody has their own definition of equity, and for some, equity means equal, and for some, equity means what you need when you need it. And so we know that not every student is the same as another student. And to me, equity comes in layers, and some of those layers are opportunities and what is available to all students in all schools, and what is available for programming options, and how do we give kids access to what they're interested in and what they want to pursue. And then there's equity in terms of support services. If students are highly gifted, if they are struggling students, what are the supports that they need to help them be successful? I think equity also comes in terms of looking at resources and how schools are resourced in terms of staffing and programming, and looking at, do schools have what they need? If you have a Title I school that receives federal dollars, what does that look like compared to a non-Title I school? I know that when you have choice elements in a district, there are also equity issues that come into play because of some of the nuances that happen as students move around a district and go to different schools. So I think equity, for me, is giving every student what they need, when they need it, and where they need it.
STEM is an imperative part of student success. American kids are doing poorly among developed countries as a whole, not just bottom performers. Many students fail to meet the basic requirements of effective learning upon entering college. What would you do to help elevate all students participating in STEM, especially for students who have no trouble graduating from high school? What are the measures you will use to evaluate success?
Well, STEM is an interesting phenomenon that's happened with that acronym in our district. And then you hear about STEM and STEAM and STEAMer, and I just heard one the other day that has like every letter of the alphabet almost in the acronym. And I think what STEM stands for is that we want students to have great opportunities to develop those higher level thinking skills and to have opportunities to take high level courses and achieve at high levels so that they're competitive with their peers, both in their own school district, in their own state, but also so that they are competitive nationally as well as globally. And so one of the things that I think has to happen with that is we talk about preparing students for jobs of the future that we don't know about. Yet when we work with teachers and administrators, sometimes I'm having trouble staying in my spot. I need a tape on the floor. We forget that we have mindsets that have to also shift with that. And sometimes we have to offer experiences that help people see that vision of what it is that we're trying to do with our students. So one of the things that I think has to happen is more exposure to what those jobs and those work environments really are. And so this past year, I developed a program for teachers called Building the Innovative Teacher. And what we did is we focused on a different innovative concept with each module that we did. They came for 3 hours once a month. And what we did is we went on site to some of the really innovative places in our district. Lincoln is currently known as the Silicon Valley of the Prairie. There are a lot of tech startups there. We have Innovation Campus at University of Nebraska. And so I took teachers to places like Innovation Campus, where they're doing some phenomenal things with robotics. We went to Duncan Aviation, where we see people solving real problems with international jets that come in to be serviced. And we went to Turbine Flats, which is a tech startup, kind of a incubator. And when we were at one of those locations, I told this story this morning, one of the teachers who was in the group, he walked by me and he said, "I feel so bad." And I said, "Well, why do you feel bad? That wasn't what we're trying to do with this experience for you." And he said, "I just had no idea." And he had no idea that these jobs existed right in his community. He had no idea what some of these companies were doing, and he felt like he had underexposed the students in his classroom because he had no idea that this was taking place. And so part of it is helping people really capture a mindset with having experiences that bend that mindset. So we're better able then to understand what we need to be offering to students and the opportunities that we need to be giving them, both in what they're doing academically, but then connecting that academic work to those things that they may be interested in or able to do or needing to be prepared for, whether it's workforce development or just giving them the opportunities that we want them to have, along with all of the other students who are going to be the ones doing those jobs for us. So I think STEM and STEAM comes back to really high quality teaching and learning, and those very, very important courses that are indicative of an entire program that prepares our students to be globally competitive.
How would you transform our district from relying on separate classrooms to empowering general ed teachers and special ed teachers to collaborate and welcome kids with significant disabilities into general ed classrooms in our schools?
Mm-hmm. That's another mindset piece, and that shared mindset is something that has to be pervasive in every school. They're not your students, they're not those students, they are all of our students. And we want all of our students to be successful. So one of the things that I would look at is what are the current structures that are in place for how teachers currently collaborate, and what is done during the time that's been set aside for that teamwork to be done. And there are a lot of different models that are happening across the nation in terms of collaborative planning. Sometimes it's in grade level teams, sometimes it's cross grade level teams. And time is a premium. Whenever we're talking about teachers and collaborative planning, we also have to be mindful of the time that's available to do that. So current structures, professional learning communities, PLCs is how they're often termed, is a great structure that works well when it's done well, and when there's good professional learning that keeps building on that, so that we don't kind of have that drift over time where we lose best practices. And just looking at how schedules are set up to allow to do that. There's been some creative things done with how things are shared during a school day in order to allow for that collaborative planning. But it all starts with mindset, so that we are not looking to someone else to be accountable for student achievement, but it's a collective mindset, and that everybody is accountable for the success of students in a school.
This same question is along the same line.
Okay.
And you've answered, I think, some of this, but for the sake of asking the questions, I'm going to ask this question. Currently, in our district, most of the multiply disabled and or highly impacted special education students are denied least restrictive environment in general education setting, and the parents are forced into segregated education, driven out of the district, or are pushed to file due process. How do you intend to stop these practices and implement best practices such as inclusive education for all?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's big stuff to start looking at in a district, because special education, of course, is one of the most complex areas of public education, because it involves transportation, it involves resources, it involves funding and reimbursable kinds of activities. So there's always that struggle between where is the least restrictive environment and how do you provide the very best services possible to a student, and then where is that? Is it possible to do that in a neighborhood school, or is it something that requires more specialized services in a location? I am not familiar enough with what is currently the practices, but the goal is for every student to be able to be in an environment with their peers as much as possible so that they can access regular education but have those specialized supports that they need to be academically successful, and to have their unique needs met, whether it's physical therapy, occupational therapy. It may be what they need in terms of equipment and that specialized equipment. And I was talking with a group this morning. One of the pressure points of a rapidly growing district is that physical space. And most of our public schools in America were not designed for having specialized spaces available. Whether it's students with significant behavior needs or students with autism who may need some accommodations with equipment, or students who need access and mobility considerations. And so we've kind of made spaces in our schools into that which we need. But when you're growing, then you add another classroom, and then where does that program go? The same thing may happen with preschool classrooms or other programs that then kind of get forced out of an existing space. So those are really hard questions then to know, okay, then what are we going to do to still provide what is required within an IEP, and what is good quality services, but done in a way that's also being fiscally responsible and really providing the highest level of expertise for a student. So those are really, really complex questions. And I would have to start just making school visits and visiting with the people who work with students in special education and finding out what are the possibilities. And if we're moving towards a different setup or a different model, then how do we get there incrementally so that we can plan for it and so that parents aren't surprised by things? If you're moving programs, the last thing that a parent wants is a surprise. And looking at time spent on buses and availability of transportation that doesn't keep a student on a bus for too long. So a lot of complexities to that, but ultimately we want kids in the best place with the best resources and the best services that we can have for them.
Excuse me. The next question is, describe your experiences with developing and implementing mental health programs for students.
Yeah, that's a big topic in education now. I think school districts are increasingly feeling the need to provide additional mental health supports for students. And I think there's a lot of layers to this. It's not an easy, quick fix. It's not just add more counselors or just add more social workers or add more psychotherapists, mental health professionals. But it's in the layers. It starts with the foundational pieces for how we do school, routines and procedures, and having those predictable schedules and expectations in our schools. And then it moves from there to those connections that students have with the adults in the school and in their lives, and who do they connect with and who do they feel safe with. And then it's helping our teachers to be skilled and equipped to meet student needs, and things like trauma-informed care, and looking at restorative practices, and how do we get in tune with when a student is struggling. If they don't have some overt behaviors that clue us into the fact that they're struggling, how do we give them other opportunities to share what's happening and to get help? And then there's some pieces that I think need to be required, and some states have mandated it. I'm in a state that has mandated suicide prevention training for all staff. And so some preventative measures like that, and looking for those indicators. And then it's zeroing in on drug and alcohol prevention and some of the nuanced pieces that our schools, you would like to just say maybe high school and middle school, but it's even elementary with substance abuse and some of the blurring that takes place between mental health needs and some things that come along with substance abuse. And so then it's gathering your community partners, because school can go so far, but at that point then you also have to have professionals and community partners who are willing to work with the district. And so in my current position, we enjoy a great partnership with 5 or 6 different community partners who come into our schools who can provide on-site mental health services during the school day. And then it's partnering with building administrators and parents to have those things happen. So it's a lot of layers, and it's proactive work as well as reactive work, and just being really in tune and knowing our students. I think one of the best things that can happen is that a school makes sure that everyone knows all of the students. And one of the things that I've seen just recently that's been very effective is a list of all of the kids, and the adults go and they mark which of the students they know by name, they know something about them, they know something about their families. And if there's a student that doesn't have an adult who knows them, they make sure that somebody zeroes in on them. Then you have systems with students who are trained and who are interacting with other students. And so a lot of pieces to that, but boy, just never enough, because our kids are so important to us, and we just know that there are increasing issues with the needs that our kids have, and we have to be as responsive as we possibly can be, because we want them to be successful adults and contributing to our great communities.
I have 2 other questions related to social emotional, but I believe you've answered those, so I just want to acknowledge to the people that handed them in that we focused in on the social emotional and well-being.
I would just add maybe one thing that cues me to saying is also the curricular pieces and the things that are planned instruction. And I know Lake Washington has some similar pieces of curriculum that I'm familiar with and I'm using in my current district. So that's part of that proactive piece is helping students develop those good, healthy habits along the way as well.
What is your definition of a successful student?
Oh, wow, that's a really hard question. You know, I have a saying that I subscribe to is we want students to be able to choose their future without it choosing them. And so I think a successful student is a student who has everything that they need in order to be able to choose their future.
Lake Washington School District has had tremendous growth over the past 10 years. Our school buildings cannot keep up. What are some examples you would propose to manage growth and build to help get bonds passed?
Yeah, you have lots of growth, and I am very familiar with growth. I think maybe I said this. I'm forgetting what I've said now because I've said it to enough groups. But growing about 1,000 students a year for the last 6 years that I've been in my current district. And so there's this element of just trying to keep up with yourself as a district when you're growing that rapidly. And hopefully the plans that are in place to add schools of the future are well understood and well known by the community, and the work that goes into helping people see the why of the need as you plan forward to those opportunities when you're going to propose and pass a bond. But people have to really understand what the benefits are and how that affects their child, if their children are still in school, how it benefits the community, and what the plan is for existing facilities as well as new facilities. And so I think one of the things that's important is how you break down those plans so that they're understandable to people. And over time, you have a lot of people in the district who can articulate those plans and those needs, and you give people opportunity to share their ideas for what their solutions are, because I'm certainly not going to come up with a magic solution, but there's a lot of smart people here in this community and in this district. And as you get ideas and feedback and you begin distilling those down into what becomes in a proposal, hopefully reflects what the community wants, and then will advocate for in passing a bond.
Okay. This next one is, how do you justify separating out students with behavior issues from their typical role model peers?
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to that least restrictive environment. And there are times when a student needs to have intensity of services, which may require different programming and intensity of programming. But hopefully, there is still the goal of them returning to their home school and their home environment with their peers. Most of the time that can happen. Sometimes that may not be able to happen. But if that's the case, we want that to be still the best solution for that student so that they can keep learning. One of the things that was very troubling to me when I first came to this position that I have right now was we had some programs where students were restricted from their peers. They were in a separate program, but learning was not taking place to the degree that it needed to. There was a little more chaos than what we wanted to have, and so we put a different model in place. We changed some leadership, and we changed the philosophy behind what was happening so that that goal of returning to their home school and their peers was the goal. At the same time, teaching and learning became the focus, and once some of the behaviors began to come around and be reshaped, kids began to enjoy learning. They have leadership opportunities, and they began to see themselves differently and began to be very, very successful. And then when they went back to their schools, part of the work was also in working with the staff who would be working with them, who kind of had a mindset of maybe who that student was and not who they were now. And so there's a real bridge that has to be built between some specialized programming and regular ed classrooms and programming so that it's not seen as, well, you're going over here and we'll see you later, but it's still a shared process of helping students be successful and stay connected to their home schools. One of the requirements that we have in that program is that principals and teachers stay in close contact with those students and keep talking with them in terms of when you come back, and we can't wait to see you, and we know you're doing so well and we're so proud of you. And so I think there are times when those programs can be very effective, but a lot of supports and good systems have to be in place for them to serve students well.
Lengthy question.
As opposed to the short ones
Yeah,
I've been getting?
as opposed to the short ones I've had. A lot of times there's a declaration in each
All right.
question. Okay,
Yep,
so
it's good.
just so you know
It's
that.
good information.
The demography of the Lake Washington School District has changed rapidly in recent years, with longtime local residents, and many new immigrant families working in high tech. This rapid change brings very diverse views and high ideas of how education is and should be. This is the root of many challenges in terms of funding, curriculum, choice schools, etc. What's your experience on this? What solutions do you have to work with these differences in priorities and expectations?
Yeah. Well, my experience is Lincoln is a very diverse community. It's actually a refugee resettlement community, and so we have over 100 languages and over 90 countries represented within our school. And so then there's meeting the needs of languages and culture. We've added some coursework that we require of our teachers in for understanding different cultures. In fact, we just launched a new class this week called Cultural Connections. And what it all boils down to is understanding. And I think the best solution and the best things that help a district move forward is to have a lot of conversations with people and to know and listen and understand what people are thinking and feeling about education and what they want for their children, and helping people understand each other, and then looking at what's possible. If there are things that need to move forward with adding services, or different supports. We work with a lot of cultural liaisons and a lot of folks who are bridge builders with new communities that come to Lincoln. Most recently, we've had a lot of families arriving from Russia, and a case in point is there was recently kind of a thing that floated around about doing a sit-out in protest to sex education. And I don't even want to bring that up because I don't want anybody to submit a blue card on sex ed tonight, but no, just kidding. But what was lacking was just their understanding of what current programming was in our district. and language barriers and just not being familiar yet with our school district because they haven't been in our community very long, we went out and we met with families. And we had someone present information so that they understood what was currently being taught in our classrooms and how they could ask questions as a parent and how they can visit school or opt their children out of something if they weren't comfortable, but they just didn't know. And so we could have let that just go and said, well, they just don't want their kids here, or they don't like us, or whatever you make up. But it came down to having a conversation and going and meeting them where they are and helping them feel part of our district, and they were really, really appreciative. So I think you have to just have some of those good conversations and provide opportunities for people to come and talk and help you get a better understanding of where they're coming from, and then you start to build from there.
What is your management style? What do you think is the most important quality of a superintendent?
Oh, management style. See whatever 100 books that are out there that identify your style. I will go with a book, one that kind of resonates with me, and it's called Multipliers. And my management style is really looking at people's strengths and their positions and seeing if those things match and helping them to do their best work possible. And sometimes people need more tools. They need freedom to think and dream. They need coaching. But what we want to look for is top talent in the first place to get great people here in our district. But then we want to help develop them over time. And so I like to multiply, and I like to think about that all the way out into our schools. And so that everyone who has a role in the district understands their role and has the equipment that they need to do that role the very, very best that they can. And the most important thing that a superintendent does,
What's your quality?
my most important quality as a superintendent, I love public education and I love children. And when you have a high-performing district like Lake Washington, I think that it's important to show those qualities to the nation where education is working, and then to keep making that better from there. And so I look to the future and think about what's possible in a district like this. And I think a superintendent then is that bridge builder between the school district and those who work and live and go to school, and the communities that support that work and their ability to get squarely behind everything that happens in a school district and to feel very, very connected through our school board directors and the people who are publicly charged with advocating for public education and making all of those pieces work together for the good of our kids.
What would you propose to support the diverse student population by hiring teachers and staff of color and providing training of teachers and programs for families?
Yeah, that's a challenge in so many districts. One of the things that has worked well, where I am currently, that's been a focus of our hiring, is trying to build from within. And so we have students who are interested in being teachers that we try to encourage to get into our education pathway and to let them know very, very early we are very interested in them being teachers. And we try and look for the very, very best in as many places as we can find to bring teachers to our district who reflect our student population. That's a real challenge in Midwest United States, where people think of Nebraska as corn stalks and football, and sometimes we'll say, where's Nebraska? But yet the diversity that we have as a district, it's so important that we're pursuing that. We also have staff members who may not start as certificated staff, as teachers, but are interested in pursuing a teaching degree and have some tuition support mechanisms that we use to help them move along in their own professional journey to become teachers. And so that's also been something that's important. I think it's important to couple things together, that you want the very, very best staff and you want a staff that cares deeply about students and a staff that reflects who you are as a community and who you are as a school district. But I will tell you that we need people who are in the community to also be advocating for people to come and be part of the district. And so part of that is I'm one person in a district who can do that, but the voice of people who are here and enjoy the school district can speak very loudly about all of the great things about coming to this district to teach and learn.
What is your past experience and plans in Lake Washington School District in developing our students to be future leaders of our country?
Oh, future presidents or whatever. I don't know if we'd wish that on any of them right now. But, you know, kind of what I said before is equipping students to do what they want to do in life. And I think one of the things that we've seen that's increasingly important to our students, got to stay in my spot, is students want to have a voice. And I think when we look at what's a motivating factor for kids now is that they want to make an impact. And so connecting them with things that are really impactful in their community and giving them opportunities to do those things so that they can see what that looks and feels like is a really good opportunity. I don't know right now if you have some of those built into your curriculum, but many districts have those service learning opportunities as part of their school experience. And then I think helping students have a really good, solid understanding of how our government works and how our society works, and blending politics and society so that they know how to be engaged civically and how to go about having a voice in a way where people are going to hear you, and helping them see that they have possibilities to impact things for not only maybe their class or their school, but their community, and helping them catch a vision for what's possible to impact bigger places and things. I also think we can't discount the impact of technology in helping kids connect to real-world things. We just had an 8th grade student who did a project where she connected up with some biologists in Florida in a topic that she was interested in, and she was able to Zoom with them and get their feedback on her project. And it was, you know, as easy as pulling up a virtual meeting. And so I think we also have to help them access things in a way that's safe, number one, but in a way that connects them with some things that they're really interested in, that maybe they don't have to go to physically, but they have right at their disposal if they have a computer with them.
Jane, what are your views on charter schools?
Charter schools. Well, we don't have charter schools in Nebraska, and so that has been something that we have opposed to try and keep the health of public education at its finest and keep those funds directed towards public education. So my highest priority is keeping public schools afloat and well-funded and well-resourced so that we continue to have a strong public education system.
I think you've answered this, but if you want to add anything to it, the question is, how would you define inclusive schools?
Inclusive schools are schools that welcome all students, however they come through the doors to us, with whatever needs they have, with whatever talents they have and gifts, and helping to do everything possible for them to be as successful as they can be and to learn. Learning is number one, and for them to be connected with good relationships and for them to feel like they belong. I think inclusiveness has to then translate to a sense of belonging.
I'm sorry, whoever gave this. Next question. I'm not sure what the last sentence means, so I'm just going to ask the first part of the question, which, again, is the question. What is your opinion on building schools larger than the current number, so growing new schools does not exceed our capacity? So the question, I think, is what's your position on building schools larger than the current schools we're building?
Yeah, you know, I don't probably know enough to answer that well. I think the challenge in a rapidly growing district, I know this from experience, is you build a brand new school and before you know it, it's full. and then you have a ways to go before you're going to see that next new school being built. So one of the things that I would look at is just how students are placed in schools. One of the things that I'm responsible for in my current position is the staffing for all of our schools and for regulating the permit activity that happens with those schools. So who's allowed to go to another school outside of their attendance area. And part of that is so that then we can keep buildings adequately staffed and resourced, and that we don't have some of these massive enrollment swings between schools, so that one school loses too much enrollment and then loses teachers, and then another school becomes overcrowded. So I would want to look at the systems that are in place in the district and how all of that happens. And typically, if we open a new school district where I am currently, we will not allow it to get filled up rapidly with some of those permit type enrollments. And so there's a lot of complexity around that, because you're also trying to alleviate kind of here and now space concerns. And so it's hard when all of that happens very, very quickly. So I think part of it depends on where you're going to build it and what the capacity can be, and then looking at, are there some alternatives to the programming that might also alleviate some of those space conditions? Are there variable schedules that you can do? Is there a way to diversify some things in other places, maybe to add some relief? So I think you got to think all kinds of ideas and a little bit outside of the box, but that's probably a challenge that isn't going to go away for a while. So I would want to look at what the future plans are for some of those facilities that are going to be coming online.
And again, I think you've answered this, but
Okay.
I'll read the question anyway, and if you want to add anything. Which is better, push in or pull out services?
Yes. I think it depends on what you're looking at and what the needs of the student are. There are times when push-in services can be very, very beneficial if a student can stay in the classroom and be served with whatever it is that they're needing, if it's remediation or if it's practice or if it's enrichment or extension. Or if it's pull out because they need to be in a specialized group, or they need some concentrated time, or they need to have a quieter environment, or they need to have availability of some manipulatives or some tools in a classroom, and maybe can't have as good of an opportunity to do those things in the regular ed classroom. So I wouldn't be able to say that one is better than the other, but I think you have to be in tune with knowing which is the best scenario and then making a good decision about that, and not staying locked into one or the other. There are times when you need to be fluid with both of those things. And I think sometimes we get locked into something and then we forget that we can also add an element of flexibility, or we're progress monitoring so that we're looking at if a student is achieving and getting what they need, or if we need to change something so that that goes better for them. So it's what a student needs at the time they need it.
As the new superintendent, what would your approach be towards educating families and staff who resist current best practices such as MTSS, inclusive education for all students, and universal design for learning?
That's another big question. You know, I think sometimes it has to start with kind of going back to basics of what do we mean when we say all of those things. And what is the current practice, and what is it that a family really feels like isn't being done in terms of meeting the needs of their child? Everybody wants the best for their student. And sometimes it's a matter of going back to, well, what does the current plan say? And how is the student really achieving? And if they're not achieving, what do we need to go back to the drawing board and look at? It's also in how we network people together to continue educating and informing and listening. And so I don't know what's in place currently for parent groups or for kind of networking with groups. We have a great parent group in my current district that meets on a monthly basis for looking at special education. And within that group, there are, of course, different interests of parents whose children have a variety of needs, but then they're also connected with each other, and they're talking about, well, what works for your child and what's been really successful lately. And they also talk about things at home. And so then we kind of build a bridge that way. And then I think sometimes we bring in people who inform us, who are experts in a field, and we give people an opportunity to hear from them and to learn. And so I think there isn't a one thing to do, but a lot of different things. And ultimately, as a school district, our job is to advocate for a child to have the best services possible. And we want to do everything that we can to be partners in that process. But ultimately, we want what's best for the student. And sometimes we can get to that quickly. Sometimes that takes a little bit more time. And it's a relationship over time that has to happen as we travel through the road of a child's time in public schools. So I think there's a lot of pieces to that and a lot of listening and communication that has to happen.
We have time just for two more questions.
Okay.
One is in-depth probably, and the other is kind of a fun question. So we'll end on the fun question.
Okay. They've all been fun.
Okay, all right. The first question is inclusive schools are about belonging, as you said. How are the students who are not included in general education and their neighborhood schools supported to feel as if they belong, to be there, belong and be there to be their peers, to see them as if they truly belong? I think it comes back to what's needed for that child and doing the very best that we can to connect them. And so even in those specialized programs, we want them to have a sense of belonging with their peers. And I've seen that be very successful. But then it's still that transition back with a regular education classroom. And then I think there are some things that can happen in small steps. Sometimes it's with small groups and then building out from there. Sometimes it's helping them find commonalities with other students that maybe they aren't skilled at finding for themselves, or that we have to do some teaching. Sometimes it's those social skills. Sometimes it's other barriers. It might be anxiety or whatever might get in the way. But what we want to ultimately do is help them kind of get over some of those humps to still feel like they have friends and that they have something to look forward to when they go to school, and that their hope factor and their engagement factor stays such that they want to come to school every day. I think one of the hardest things for educators is when we have students who struggle with wanting to come to school, and when we then have parents who struggle with their children who don't want to come to school. And those are really hard situations. I don't have magic answers, but I know there are a lot of things that we can do to try and alleviate some of that feeling of not belonging. Last question, and really quickly, because
Okay.
we're over time now. What is your favorite program in your current district that might benefit Lake Washington School District 2?
Oh, gosh, you said that was a fun, easy question. I think, one of the most beneficial things right now that we have seen that's added continuity to our district, and here again, I don't know enough to know if it would be a great fit for here or not, but positive behavior intervention and supports, PBIS, and I don't know if Lake Washington works with that now or not, but that uniform expectation of how we want schools to function and to provide supports for students. And when we have students who go from school to school, or when we have staff members who are wanting to be equipped for how they work with students, that's been a really good unifier in terms of how we do professional learning, how we provide supports, how we add kind of nuanced training for people, but how we help students know what's going to happen during my day, how do I go about functioning in my school, how do I make friends with other kids, and how do we all know what's expected of us in our school. And so I think that's one. I think one other one that I would just mention that's been really very successful is a partnership that we've had with our partners in juvenile justice in helping students avoid incarceration and avoid being put into the judicial system, and giving some alternatives to suspension and expulsion that's helped keep kids in school. And so those are two things that I think have been really beneficial in helping students stay in school, graduate, and continue learning and stay on a better path for the future factor that I talked about.
Jane, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all
This
so much for
concludes-
being here.
Each of you has an observation impression sheet. Please fill those out and make sure that they're passed in to us. And we will collect those, and those will be given to the board tomorrow morning so they can review them and see what you've all been thinking about Jane's responses. And so it's very important that you do that. We are going to start the next candidate in 5 minutes. I blew it. I went 10 minutes over, and that's my fault. I apologize. But we need to keep moving on that. So stand up, stretch, fill out this, and we'll go get the, yes, ma'am. That'll be the same questions, yes. Yes, we're going to ask the same questions. There may be a specific question that if you studied something on an individual candidate that you'd like to ask specifically, raise your hand with the card and we'll take it. But we will, in general, use the same cards that we started with. Okay, thank you.
If everyone will take their seats, we'll get started in 1 minute. Will members of the audience please take a seat?
That's a question that was asked. There's so many on inclusive education.
Okay. Okay.
These are all questions that were asked. There's the one I blew. I couldn't read it right. Here's that favorite program.
Good evening, everyone. We will continue with our town hall meeting, and I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Paul Gordon from Chicago.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not sure if this is working. Yeah, I'm pretty loud anyway. Generally, I've never needed a microphone in my entire life. So it's on, but I don't think it's on. So I'm not sure if I'm getting signals from the back room. There we go. Technology, gotta love it. Well, again, good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Gordon. I give you a little bit of background on who I am. I currently serve as the superintendent in Glen Ellen School District 41. It's about 30 miles outside of Chicago. It's this crazy K-8 thing that I never knew about. I was originally from Colorado, spent 46 years there. Stayed in one district, Adams 12 5-star school district, and then had this really great idea that I'd pick up my family, my son who was a senior at high school at that time, and my daughter who was a junior in high school at that time, and said, hey, let's go to the Midwest. Let's go to the Midwest. They were not too excited at that time, but it really turned out to be an incredible opportunity for my entire family. I've served as chief academic officer, as I said, in Adams 12 5-star school district. It's just outside of Denver. It borders Denver, Boulder. It's a large school district of 42,000 students, 55, 6, 7 schools, wide range of just a comprehensive K-12 district. I was chief academic officer there. I was also their executive director of professional development prior to that, also working directly with middle schools. Prior to that, I was a principal, one of those jobs that absolutely loved. I love being a school principal. I was a principal of Westlake Middle School, 950 students. When I received the job, it was a school that was thought of that had much poverty, that had gangs, had low academic achievement. Most of those things weren't true. Most of it is perception. The academics were definitely below others. We had 8 middle schools in our district at that time. By the third year, we had made it the #1 ranked middle school in our district. It was recognized by the state of Colorado for its achievement and growth. Colorado was kind of ahead of the curve on growth, as well as status and achievement. So we were really proud of that work. And I really do mean we. Everything that I've accomplished, it has always been about people coming together and doing this work. Prior to that, I was a teacher, and quite honestly, I had no real intent in getting into administration. I was a high school football coach. I loved life. I was teaching. I had my summers. I had kids, young kids. Life was good. Literally, we were at a pool one day with my kids, and the phone rings. I pick it up, and it's my principal who said, why didn't you apply for this job? I said, I'm kind of enjoying this. He said, you've got an interview tomorrow. So that started my administrative career, and I've absolutely loved making a difference for kids, for staff, parents, and a community in a very different way than when I was a teacher. One of the pieces about me, I like to see in systems and structures. It's really important for me. And as a leader, I think that's one of the most important things that we create are really great systems and structures for people to do their work. Because the core of what I do, I believe in people. I believe in people and the value of people and what they bring to the table every day. So that's a little bit about, I'm sure my wife would love that I forgot this. I've got 2 amazing kids. I know, I'm like, yeah. All the women in the room are like, yeah, I get this. I've got 2 amazing kids. My son Matthew just graduated from DePaul University in downtown Chicago. So proud of him. My daughter is going to be a senior at University of Kansas, a little Jayhawk, just doing amazing things. Yeah, I know, Rock Jack Jayhawk. They're everywhere. And people love those Jayhawk. I mean, that Jayhawk stuff is crazy. She's now interning out in California with a designer. So really excited about both of them. And my wife and I have been married for 23 years. She's put up with me for 23 years. That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing once you get to know me. All right, I'll hand it over for questions.
Okay. All right. I'm going to combine several questions dealing with equity and diversity in the district. So it'll be a multi-part question for you. How will you ensure equity for all minorities in the district, including disabled students? What would you bring to the equity team? Lake Washington School District is an extremely diverse district. Can you tell us about your experience working with diverse populations and how you would support our district in our work in advancing educational equity for all students?
All right, we're starting with that question. The multi-layered 20 questions. All right, so let's go down this equity inclusion. First, coming from Adams 12 5-star school district, 42,000 students. We had schools that had 95 to 99% poverty. We had a high Hispanic population, lot of economic diversity, a lot of social diversity within Adams 12, and really trying to see differently, how do we support kids? Equity is about looking at each child and seeing what does this child need to ensure they're getting those great opportunities. Our jobs are to create incredible opportunities for kids. So every kid can open that door. Whatever that door is that they want to open, they want that. We have to give them those opportunities. So one of the pieces that I've done in my past as Chief Academic Officer is think about equity differently, as well as each student with their academics and ensuring that they have those right aspects, but also from a district, thinking about it from a financial standpoint. At times, things must look different. So when we had a generationally struggling middle school, I'm telling you, generationally struggling school, and we made a hard decision to say, we're going to transform this school. But you can't just call it a new name the next year and assume everything is going to be just fine because we called it something else. We transformed this middle school into a K-8 STEM school and truly put the right amount of dollars into it so it looked significantly different when kids walk in. Kids know what you value. They know it. We can try to bluff them, but kids know what's being valued. When they walk into different schools and they see different things, they know the value adults are putting on them in their educational lives. We had to say, we believe in you. We're there with you. And we're going to give you the best school possible. This is a school that is surrounded by more mobile homes per capita than anywhere in the United States. We said, we believe in you. We're going to do things differently for you. Inclusion, we're on an inclusion journey, and I'll tell you, it's a journey in District 41. I believe all kids are general education students first and foremost. I have worked long and hard in my career in inclusion, but this past year has been an eye-opening experience for me. We are very fortunate to work with Dr. Julie Costin. Dr. Costin is one of the foremost experts in inclusion. She's a game changer. She shifts your thinking. And again, I'm already a person who really believes in this work. But when Julie came in and just gave us a different way of thinking about our kids and different opportunities to give kids access to general education opportunities. So for us, for me, what we've done is create those opportunities. It's amazing. We're in our infancy in this journey. We use Park in Illinois. You guys use Smarter Balance. I was blown away with our preliminary results for year one with our students with IEPs. Blown away at the difference by making subtle changes already. We have big changes planned, but subtle changes as we're going through. Part of that is supporting educators. Equity, inclusion. You get superintendents and others who just tell our staffs to go forth and do this work. What we have to do is be there together with them through these challenging times. It's not that people don't want students in their classroom. Quite honestly, it's a fear because they don't know if they have the right tools. It's our jobs to make sure people have the right tools to do their work. We have incredible educators. We've got to back them with the right resources, professional development, financial from a physical standpoint, and giving those kids every opportunity. Tony, is there another part of that question did I get it?
I think you have.
All right. I'm going to go yes on that then.
Okay. Well, this is an interesting question. I would like to know, this individual in our audience this evening would like to know how much you know about dyslexia. Okay.
Well,
before you go on.
Okay. Oh, it's another multiple questions. Man.
Keeping in mind that 10 to 20% of the U.S. population has dyslexia, please make your best guess regarding the following. 1, in 2000, blank percent of the Texas prison population was determined to have dyslexia. What percentage do you believe?
Wow. We have pop quiz night.
It is a pop quiz.
All right. I'm going to go Texas population. Now, if it were 50%, I don't know.
I believe this 48%.
Oh,
Okay.
literally.
Very good.
I mean,
Okay.
let's just be honest here. There was
In 2007, a study found that blank percent of the U.S. entrepreneurs were determined to have dyslexia. What percent of our entrepreneurs?
22.5.
Close but no cigar. 35%.
That's interesting. Don't judge a book by its cover. So, former reading teacher, dyslexia, middle school reading teacher, students reading 2 to 5 years behind. Boy, you can't find a more challenging time to try to get kids to come into my classroom. Middle school students, anyways, lovely humans. And then they walk in and they know they feel less than others already. And they walk into a classroom, a reading class. Oh boy. So dyslexia is a neurobiological disorder. But you know what's fascinating about it? It really has no other cognitive, because you have dyslexia, it does not impact you in other cognitive areas. It's really fascinating. So, but think about this. If you're a student, what do we do in school a lot? All the time. So, when you're not reading, it's interesting around those entrepreneurs. I had never heard that. But think about this. So, if you're struggling with reading, so with dyslexia, it's really about fluency, accuracy, spelling, being able to phonologically pronounce words and work through words phonetically. If you're not able to do that, sometimes it's really hard for educators to get past that. If you can't read, oh my goodness, our math right now is vocabulary rich. So now we're putting blocks in front of kids who may be these great mathematicians, but we have a reading piece that's saying, oh, you can't go past go. We got to hold you. We got to do something different with you. So in my class, one of the pieces, and there's, Linda Mood Bell, Wilson, language in our district, and I still do this because it was called language exclamation. I don't know why I still do that, though. You're really working on different phonemic awareness pieces, your blends, your diphthongs, all those different really unique pieces. But there's also a point in time We need to really think about our kids and really deepening their vocabulary. So what we did, started seeing a lot of success besides the program itself. And there's no perfect program out there, I'll tell you now. But what we started seeing a great amount of success was getting kids to just read. Read. We read. One of my jobs was to go down to every bookstore and find every young adult piece of writing there was. And if it engaged me, I knew it was going to engage a 12-year-old. It was just really important for our kids to have books. And we were there buying books, getting kids hands-on books, reading books, read. Because we had to start building a vocabulary, just a large supply of vocabulary. So when they're reading it, even if they could not do it phonetically, they knew word recall. And it was really important. You've got to think about different strategies. Not every kid is going to get the phonics aspects down. And there's a point in time when we got to say, okay, that's not working. 10 years into this, we've tried this, it's not working. Shocking. 10 years. We've got to do different things.
Dr. Gordon, what is your plan to close the gap of graduation rates for special education and black students?
Great question. So hopefully I'm very consistent with my answers. We give kids access. We give kids opportunities. We listen to their stories. We hear them. There's a lot of trauma. Trauma is not impacted just because of your wealth, because we're a wealthy district. Glen Ellen is a wealthy district. There's still trauma within our district, and there's different reasons and rationale why kids struggle. So we really got to think about what's happening with our students who have an IEP. What's happening with our African American community that they're not graduating at the same rate? What does that look like? You talk about equity. We've got to think about things differently. We have to do our work at times differently. And then you think about this on a large scale. How does that work across the board when we talk to our teachers and we talk to our principals about every kid matters? Every kid matters. And how do we do this work for each of those kids? In a classroom, think about our classrooms. We have 25 to 28, 30 kids. How do we make sure that our teachers and our principals have the tools to do that work, to really see each kid? I recently wrote an article for the Daily Herald where it really was about ensuring that every kid, and so one of the pieces, I am very passionate on these topics, that every kid knows they belong. And I mean it, every kid. One of the board members asked a question, if you had a superpower, what would your superpower be? Mine was being Flex Armstrong. And why I chose that was I literally believe this. We have to wrap our arms around every child in this district, and they know they belong, and they know we see them. That's a difference maker. When a kid knows they've got somebody in their corner and somebody who knows their story, game changer. I know that makes a difference. Why? I've seen it. Again, when you come from a school district that has significant poverty, you see that trauma, you see that work, you see the power of people. And I'll go back to my other thing. It is about people. We're all trying our hardest. We've got to do this really thoughtfully, and we got to do this together. It's got to be a coherent system. I'm a tight, loose leader. There are certain things I am dead tight on. In seeing kids, believing in kids, and believing in people, I will not waver on. I will not waver on.
Dr. Gordon, we have about 50 questions here.
Oh, boy.
And about 20 minutes remaining. So
shut up and try to answer the questions a little more concisely.
What are the most significant challenges you think you'll face here as you encounter high expectations for academic achievement and high levels of student anxiety, depression, and suicide?
I think one of the pieces, I think I'm uniquely qualified to lead this district because of my work in my two different districts. Glen Ellen School District 41 is a very affluent community, high expectations. There was a study, there was a New York Times article done on the North Shore and other suburban districts in the Chicagoland area. Very similar. Glen Ellen does not have the size, but it has similar wealth and similar expectations. Everybody wants their kids to go to that Ivy League school, to go to that Big Ten school. Huge expectations on every one of our kids to be that difference maker. What we do, again, I will go back to being consistent, that every kid knows we care about them and that we're there for them. Many of those kids are self-driven, and they want that. Others do feel that external pressure, be it parents, be it the community, be it whatever it is. One of the things we were surprised going out there was the intensity around what school your kids were going to. You know, must have been really horrible parents. We're like, I don't know. I don't know. You mean you don't know yet? I'm like, wow, everybody back off. We're figuring this thing out. So I get it, just from a parent. The peer pressure of adults and then the peer pressure with kids, that is a lot to ask of our kiddos. Of a 9th grader, a 10th grader. Where are we going? What are you going to do? What's your life? Da-da-da-da-da-da. We got to back off, breathe for a second, and ensure we have the right mental health teams in place, social workers, psychologists, counselors, the right people. But I'll also go back to people making connections. I'm a relationship-based person, and I expect our teachers and our principals and everyone who walks in our doors to see kids. I'm trying, Tony. Trying.
Dr. Gordon, what sets you apart from the other candidates as a leader and as a visionary?
I don't know the other two candidates other than hello. You can look at my track record of innovation. I'll put it up against anybody in the country. So we've opened, in Adams 12, we've opened nationally recognized STEM schools. Schools that 7 other states, districts in other states have come to us and said, we want to use this same model. Transformative work. Why it is? Because it's kids doing authentic work, solving real-world problems. It's a passion of mine. Believe in those pieces. Trying to ensure that we do good work. My belief, again, I think what sets me apart from others, I'm like a broken record. I believe in people. I'm an optimistic person. Even in some of the most challenging times, I'm one of the most optimistic people because I believe in those people around us. I believe in our teachers. I believe in our leaders, and I, most importantly, believe in our kiddos. I think what sets me apart is the work we do around inclusion, closing the achievement gap, be it large district or small district. Really pleased with our preliminary park results that came back, as I said. But the past 3 years, continue to close that gap as a district at 8% and at our title school by 12%. Next year, both are going to jump up by 3%. We continue to do good work. I think the thing that also sets, again, I think the other two people are absolutely lovely as well. What sets me apart from others is the way I think about in systems and structures, creating really great systems and structure to allow people to do their work. I think that's something that I've always consistently seen and be able to do is to help people create those structures that allow educators to plan better, to think about master schedules. I know that's not something a whole lot of parents think about, but when I go into a school, I like their vision and mission stuff on the walls. That's really nice most of the time. But I want to see a school's master schedule because that tells me what you value. A master schedule tells me everything what that school values. Time for educators, time for kids. What is it you value? I know master schedules. I know how to build them. I believe I know what educators need to be successful.
How do you feel about supporting students who wish to pursue blue-collar careers? How would you support kids not destined for a 4-year college?
Amen. Amen. Not every kid has to go to Harvard. Not every kid has to do that. Our career in tech education is critical in this day and age. We had one of the best CTE programs in Adams 12. I loved it. Kids working with their hands on cars, in design shops, doing different aspects that I think are so critical. When I think about CTE, I think about those are the true entrepreneurs. Those are those kids who are just doing amazing things because they're creating. They're doing with their hands. They're thinking. Think about all the different aspects that kids are doing in those CTE programs, from building, thinking about the math that they're doing on a consistent basis, applying. I love kids that apply their thinking and their work. So I support it. I support kids. I support people making really good choices. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. Our job is to open all the doors possible. Your job is to figure out what are those doors. Our job, create opportunities, open doors, give you those opportunities, walk through them. We're going to be there. We're going to help you. If it's in auto mechanics, rock it. If it's being plumber, rock it. Be the best plumber and open up your own dang business and charge me like the other guy did, $400 for 2 hours of work. I'm like, wow, that's good. That's good. That stuff happens. So I'm about kids, people. Whichever way they want to go, I'm there to support them.
As the superintendent of this vastly diverse school district, how will you ensure that the diversity of the people working for the district will be representative of the diversity of the student body?
You know, that's a challenge throughout the United States. It is a challenge throughout the United States. So one of the pieces that we do out in Chicago is we go to high-quality teaching schools, but who are known for a more diverse teaching pool. We go to the University of Illinois in Chicago. We go to Southern Illinois. We go to campuses, Northeastern. We go to campuses that we know have more minority students when we're at the fairs. You have to go there. You have to be present. The other piece we're doing is making sure that we're engaging our high school students, that making them understand that teaching pathway is an amazing opportunity for all kids. And I go back to, we got to believe in our kids that they can and will do this great work, no matter your background. The teaching profession is an amazing place to be. I know it gets beat up at times, but it's a great place for young people to get into this career. So I would just continue to challenge when we're going out for job fairs, and then I would continue to push internally, especially in a district like this that is so diverse, to remind kids teaching is a pathway, and an amazing pathway, and starting to recruit internally.
Dr. Gordon, what is your favorite program in your current district that might benefit Lake Washington School District students?
There are so many, but I'm going to go to one. We're really unique, and I'm really proud of it. Our Spanish, for full immersion Spanish, daily for 30 minutes for all students. We do things that are very different in District 41, and we're really proud of it. You should hear these 3rd and 4th graders speaking fluent Spanish. It blows me away. Why do we do that? Not because it's cool, because it gets me excited. It's because when we think about the brain, and we think about, obviously, the linguistic side, huge game changer there. But also when people don't understand about when you're speaking a second language, the analytical side of the brain lights up as well. But then we go to, we're one of the only industrialized nations that don't champion multiple languages in our schools. Blows me away. We should celebrate people who speak multiple languages. The opportunities are crazy for kids who speak 2 languages. We should support it. We should do it. We should continue to push it. I am so proud of our, we call it FLES, foreign language in the elementary schools. So next year, it literally has rolled up from 1st, 5th grade, we'll be moving into 6th grade. And I'm telling you, it's full immersion. We're not messing around. I sit in there and I have no idea what's going on. It's amazing. But these kiddos, 1st graders, full immersion, no English being spoken, and they get it. They're rock stars because We believe in kids, and we believe in the power of their brains.
The Parent-Teacher Association currently enjoys a close and collaborative relationship with the district. How can we as parents, PTA leaders, have confidence this positive working relationship will continue on into the future with a new superintendent?
Call Jody Herbold, my PTA president. Call her. Call anybody on my PTA, on my executive council. Call them. So I can sit up here and pontificate. You know I can do that. But I also believe in my actions. Call them. We work side by side. I'll tell you one really cool piece that our PTA did. When we were developing our long-range plan, it was really a rigorous process, great KPIs, all of that work. You know what the PTA did? They came to me and said, Paul, we want to align a lot of our work with the long-range plan of the district. What PTA says, we've got to be doing things that are direct alignment to this long-range plan. And we want to partner with you even closer. Love it. I meet with the executive council once a month, sitting with them, having those conversations. Where are we going? What are we doing? But I would. Jody's like, why would you tell people that to call me? She would be happy to pick up anybody's phone call.
What is your management style? What do you think is the most important quality for a superintendent?
I lead through relationships. My job is to lift people up, to coach people along, to help people see their potential. I believe in people. But there are opportunities that I have coached people out too, because it's just not a perfect fit for the organization. But for me personally, my leadership style is about hiring amazing people. And again, I'd ask you to go back and look at my track record. I have a track record of hiring really good people. I then set out expectations. I'm really clear with expectations. My values, integrity, believing in people, trust, honesty. And I expect those values to be represented in my cabinet. I expect those values to be represented in my principals. I expect that across the board. Those people, that's how I lead. I also lead, I'm not a micromanager. I don't like being micromanaged. Raise your hand if you like to be micromanaged. No one. Literally no one has ever said yes to that question. So why would we think this is a great idea for me to hire really great people to do X job where I have maybe this much knowledge and impart my wisdom upon them? No, I trust people. I allow people to do their job. Now, I hold people accountable. We have really rigorous outcomes. We have conversations. I coach, I mentor, and I build people up through relationships.
What is your opinion on building schools larger than their current enrollment capacity in an effort that build schools that do not open over capacity?
Seems to make sense. Big piece is looking long-term, doing demographic studies, where are our greatest growth spots within the district, really making sure we're very strategic about it. It makes no sense that we open 2 days later, we're full. So we've got to be careful with every tax dollar that we're asking our community to give to us. We have to be those great stewards. So I think about it more in stewardship of finances. How do we do this job better for people? How do we make sure that we're using your tax dollars incredibly well? So when I think about the size, I honestly go to demographic studies. John Casarda is like nationally known for doing these types of studies. He's a university professor out of North Carolina. Bringing in people like that who do this for a living to say, where are our growth? Where are our opportunities? So we're building the right size building at the right time, not coming back to taxpayers a couple weeks later and saying, hey, we need to add on to this building. I like doing it right the first time. So, yeah, I'm okay with larger sized buildings as long as you resource them, that you support them with the right amount of resources.
This is a question on inclusion.
Okay.
How would you transform our district from relying on separate classrooms to empowering general ed teachers and special education teachers to collaborate and welcome kids with significant disabilities to general ed classrooms in their home schools?
I'm doing it. Literally. So when I first got to District 41, we would, and again, it's a smaller district. Illinois does things a little bit differently. But students were going to other school districts. And I said, well, that makes no sense. That literally makes no sense. We're bringing our kids home. But that's hard. So you have to think about our educators too. I'm always going to put students first. But then we have to think about our educators. What's their background in this? What do they know about this? What do they know about having a medically fragile child come into their classroom? Have they ever dealt with that? Have they ever dealt with a student with significant behavior needs in their classroom? Do they have the tools to do that? So to be really thoughtful and help our educators along in this journey, and it truly is a journey. But I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. Hopefully I said it in this one. I've spoken so many times, I may not have said it tonight. I believe all kids are general education students first and foremost. The research backs me every step of the way. Students perform exceedingly better when they're in the general education population. If our teachers, our principals, the support staff, all have the necessary training and supports and understanding. It's a piece that you have to work on the vision, the work, the principles of this work first and foremost with our staff, and then continuing to move this through. But it has to be done because you can plan forever. Literally, this is one of those ones that, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do this next week. We're going to do this next year. We're going to do this in 2 years. You eventually, I'm a person who takes risks as well, and you have to take that step. You have to take that step. Because why? Because we believe in kids. Our job is about kids. They didn't build these places for the adults. I am sorry. They built them for the kids. We have to do right by them every day. Talk about equity, giving kids those opportunities. That's an equity conversation. When you're talking about a graduation rate that's lower than for students with IEPs because they're in a very restrictive classroom, you have to open up opportunities for kids to excel. So we shouldn't be surprised when kids don't excel when they haven't been given access to those opportunities. Sometimes, the other thing about me, I'm a common sense dude. We've got to bring common sense to some of this work.
Dr. Gordon, we're leading up to the last two questions.
Wow. Am I ahead of schedule? Or
this one question, this next question is complex and no simple answers. The demography of the Lake Washington School District has changed rapidly in recent years, with longtime local residents and many new immigrant families working in high tech. This rapid change brings very diverse views and ideas of how education is and should be. This is the root of many challenges in terms of funding, curriculum, choice schools, etc. What's your experience on this? What solutions do you have to work with these differences in priorities and expectations?
So first and foremost, it's about listening to people, hearing their stories, hearing why they're why. Too often we forget to ask those simple questions, and people then feel like they're being diminished. They feel like they're being put into a corner. You know what people want? They want to be heard. They want somebody to sit down with them and actually look them in the eye and hear their story and hear their rationale for why this is happening. Why am I so passionate? What I love about parents and what you always hear from me, when parents will come into my office and they'll apologize. It's like, you never apologize. You're your child's number one advocate. You are here for them. Never apologize for that. Give me your thoughts. Give me your ideas. But here's the other piece on me. Our parents also have to trust in educators too. Too often, and I know I'm speaking to parents, so you're like, where are you going with this one, brother? Too often, I think we see professionals in all other professions, and we wouldn't question the scientist or the automaker or the designer or whatever it is. But since we've all had experience going to school, everybody's an expert. I'm going to listen. Do not hear me on this. I'm going to listen. We're going to listen. But I will tell you this. I hire really good people. I trust people. We build vision. We build an understanding. And we're going to talk to you about different decisions we're making on the education, why we do what we do, because that's important for you too. Our parents need to hear our why, hear our story. It is a true conversation. It's a true dialogue. And too often in this crazy world of ours, we forget that it's probably solvable if we sit and we talk to each other and we hear each other out. Because we probably have, I'm not going to say probably, we have a really good reason for why we're doing what we're doing. And I would hope that we can come to these agreements and understandings around our work. Our work is vital work, and I believe in the profession of educators. I believe in the work that they do and the hard work that this district has done for countless years in helping kids, in making sure that our kids are getting those great opportunities. There are so many different opportunities in this district. It is mind-blowing. That's what I love about it.
Well, we're within the limits of the time that's allotted for our candidates.
All right.
We have, before we move into your final comments within 1 minute, if you can do that, you mentioned that you are a coach at heart, and athletics have played a major role. We have a question for you, a baseball question.
Oh, good.
And someone in our audience wants to know, White Sox or Cubs?
Well, here's a crazy thing. Colorado Rockies. Now, there is nothing like going to a Chicago Cubs game, though. I got to tell you, it is crazy cool. It's fun. The experience is mind-blowing. It's crazy. But remember, I'm a Colorado boy at heart. Broncos, Rockies, Nuggets, Avalanche. I'm pretty consistent there, too. Love my Colorado roots.
So any final comments, Dr. Gordon?
Yeah. I'm a passionate educator who cares about people. I'm an educator who has a track record of making a difference with people. I'm an educator who cares deeply about ensuring that people have a voice, that they're heard. I'm an educator that believes that all kids belong, that all kids must be seen, that all kids must have opportunities. And that's going to look differently. I think what I bring is also a track record of innovation, of being able to push the bar. I believe kids should be working in an inquiry-based model of learning. Our kids should grapple with problems. Our kids should struggle, and I'm saying this, our kids should fail at times. The recorder went out. It's like, you shouldn't be saying that. Our kids should struggle. We should not be there grabbing them at every moment and saying, oh my goodness, little Jimmy. No, we should struggle. When you think about the brain, what the brain does, when it has those struggles, it lights up. Under MRIs, it lights up. When we're just getting the answers correct all the time, literally it's a flat line. I know this works because I've seen it. I've seen it in kindergartners who are presenting to experts. I believe that our kids should have outside influences. I need partnerships like this, that this is going to value your company, your business, your community, your police department, your governmental agency. Our kids need those opportunities. Our kids, we have some of the brightest children in the United States who go to school here. You know what our kids need here, in addition, is to grapple with real problems, to put real situations in front of them on a daily basis, to put them in a place to present their thinking, to have people push back on their thinking, to kids coming back and reflecting on their work, transforming their work and bringing it forward even better and further. But my consistent theme is, I believe in people. I believe in people. I believe in education. I believe in the public education and what we do. It's hard work. As I told educators today, there is nothing easy about this work. This is hard work. But because of our belief in people, and by creating really great structures and systems, we can do this together. We partner with our parents. We partner with our business community. We partner with our educators. We do good things for kids on a daily basis. I would be honored, and I mean it, I would be honored to be the next superintendent in Lake Washington. This is a premier school district. People have asked me, why would you leave? Why would you leave for Lake Washington? It is an amazing place. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for giving your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon.
We need to swap out the mics.
Okay, everyone, let's reconvene. Our next candidate this evening is Dr. Erin Prince. Dr. Prince.
Thank you very much. For those in the back, I'm told I have to stay right here, otherwise I would be meandering and moving around the room. So my name is Dr. Erin Prince, and thank you for staying, and I know that this is a late night. I was talking to some of the students and saying I would much prefer to be in jammies, not heels, and relaxing, as I'm sure you would as well. So actually I'm surprised that you stayed as long, and not surprised, because it tells a lot about Lake Washington School District and the commitment and the importance of this position and the hire, and how voice and validation of your voice is critical to the board in this hire. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it, and I know the board appreciates it as well. Let me tell you a little bit of humanity of who is up here talking with you first. And just want to let you know that my husband, Rick, we've been married for 33 years, and we met at Oregon State University. I shared with the staff earlier that we have celebrated our 33rd anniversary probably 2 or 3 years in a row for some reason. We can't keep track. But this is actually, we did the math, 33 years. We have 3 grown daughters, Morgan, Jordan, and Kendall. And we're empty nesters, so our adventure is beginning, and yet the girls kind of come back home, and they keep coming back, keep trading. So for those empty nesters to be, they do come back. Let me tell you a little bit after I want to know who's in the room. If you are an elementary parent, can you raise your hand? Great, fantastic. How about middle school? Great. Same hands. High school, same hands, excellent. How about parents entering in K-12? Do we have some preschool parents here? Wonderful, welcome. Do you see how they're in the front row? Love it. How about community members and nonprofits? And yes, great. And partners with the district. Fantastic, thank you. How about community business that are just really curious to have a voice? Thank you for being here. You know, I am an educator and was destined to be an educator. And if you were to look at a picture next to my diploma, you would see a 4-year-old that looks fairly similar, blonde hair, standing on a patio table, wearing her grandfather's cap and gown that trails all the way to the ground. And that picture just was a reminder to me that my family was a dedicated education, teachers throughout the family. My grandmother taught Latin, my father taught, my brother still teaches, my grandfather taught. I was destined to be an educator. And it wasn't until I battled it, but it wasn't until I followed that calling of that passion. I entered into teaching, and I taught for about 13 years, absolutely loved it, and wanted to go further to be able to train teachers. And so I wanted to get my doctorate in order to be able to work in education prep and prepare our teachers for the classroom. As I entered into my master's and the program led me through administration, I fell in love with leadership. And through that program and through leadership, I ended up in my career choices around curriculum, assessment, and instruction, where I was the specialist for K-12 for an entire district, around professional development for teachers, alignment and articulation of curriculum, the talented and gifted program for the entire district. Then I moved into principal jobs, and I had 2 different districts where I was principal, one of which was Lake Oswego. Many of you may know Lake Oswego in Oregon is fairly similar to Lake Washington, a very high achieving district. Great support from parents and community, students that are achieving at great levels and going on to do wonderful things. And during that tenure, I was recruited to go to Sherwood School District, which happened to be the fastest growing district in the state of Oregon at the time. Students were in many, many portables. We did not have a human resources department. Teaching and learning was not a significant department. And I had an opportunity to go and grow a district, to form departments and create. And it's unlike anything that I probably will ever experience again in my career. It was at that time that I met and started to collaborate with a nonprofit called Chalkboard Project. And Chalkboard Project really is a think tank nonprofit in Oregon and known nationally to innovate, provide seed money specifically around teacher effectiveness and teacher voice and leadership. And it was at that time I brought in a grant. I wrote a grant, was the grant manager around collaboration for teachers and elevating teacher effectiveness in the classroom. And that led to teacher leadership, creative compensation models, performance evaluation models that teachers co-created. It was at that time I took the superintendent job in Corvallis. Oregon State University is home in Corvallis as well as Hewlett-Packard. Very similar at a smaller scale as Lake Washington. Highly international. Lots of international students coming. Hewlett-Packard bringing international. It was an incredible, dynamic, cultural experience for the district. And by the way, go Beavs. They're in the World Series right now. Yes. Sorry, they're all part of the Pac-12. We're very excited about Beavers, so very good. I was watching it off and on today, as they were like 5-0, 6-0. So Oregon State University, Hewlett-Packard, the environment and culture within Corvallis as a superintendent there, I walked in to a very active, engaged community. I also walked in to very low and disappointing graduation rates and extreme gaps for students with disabilities, students of color, our ELL students. So I will talk, I'm sure, through your questions about what we did to overcome some of those gaps and that piece. But after my 5 years, I was recruited by Chalkboard Project for the last 2 years as a project to work at the state and national level to pass Senate Bill 182, which allowed for the creation of an intergovernmental agreement which would scale and create access for all of our districts in Oregon to be able to have the programs and processes for teacher effectiveness through professional development, mentoring, performance evaluation. So all the work that we had been doing for a decade around elevating teacher voice and leadership, that now has the ability, and those were passed and signed, and now Chalkboard is transitioning to the state, and that's what brings me to Lake Washington. We have family roots here. My husband's family grew up in Seattle and West Edmonds. Our middle daughter, Jordan, and our soon-to-be son-in-law are living in Seattle, and so the roots are going deep, and it's time for us to make a move, and we're very excited. And my experiences really drew me to Lake Washington with the experience that I've had with the Corvallis Superintendency, the work through a nonprofit advocacy at the state level, and also all of my work up to that point in teaching.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Prince. There's several questions dealing with the issue of equity, and I'm going to read several cards that will further your understanding of how to craft your response. And so the first is, what would you bring to the equity team? How will you ensure equity for all minorities in the district, including disabled students? Lake Washington School District is an extremely diverse district. Can you tell us about your experience working with diverse populations and how you would support our district in our work in advancing educational equity for all students? And what do you plan to bring to the equity team?
First and foremost, I think equity is really central to achieving what we want for student success. And it really isn't the word of the day. It is not a program. It is not training. It is a personal journey. And it is getting to the core of what you believe in for all students in the generation to be. And honestly, I come into my equity journey recognizing and stating I am a white woman and understanding the privilege that I have had entering into the space of equity. Because without recognizing that and understanding how I step into equity and the conversations, then it can't be a deeper conversation. When I entered Corvallis, the graduation rate was 68%. And as I shared this with the community members, I went out and asked, what's our graduation rate? Many, number one, didn't know. And many shared, we're doing great. A lot of our kids are doing well. They're excelling. They're taking AP classes. They're going to college. Yet when I started to tell the story, and I used student testimonies, and I used teacher testimonies, and we built the story and looked at the data, and I started going out into the community, and I talked about lining up 100 students and recognizing that 32 of those students would not be crossing the stage in 4 years to get their diploma on time. And ask them, which students do you believe are not crossing that stage? And as you can imagine, these were students with disabilities, students of color, our ELL students. We had over 50 to 60 languages spoken in our schools, with 135 different birth countries represented. And we were struggling to graduate students on time. And not only were we struggling to graduate students on time, the gaps were dismal. And this is not an incremental issue. These are students that are in our classrooms learning every day, and we just were not making the right decisions. We were not testing the systems. We were not looking at the barriers carefully in order to move our students forward. So, what did we do? We got the data in front of us, and we really started to innovate and break down systems and barriers. So we identified systems and barriers that were getting in the way by talking to students, by talking to parents, by talking to teachers. I invited innovation. I invited best research projects. And for an example, one of our high schools, collaboratively with classified teachers and certified teachers and parents and volunteers, were able to restructure a couple of opportunities, and they cut the freshman failure rate in one trimester in half. By 4 years, we had graduation rates up to 86% for our students on time and over 90% in 5 years. But more impressively, we had double-digit increases for students with disabilities, our students of color, our ELL students, and our Hispanic students. We were closing that gap, and it was through many, many processes, changes of systems, because that's really what it is. We have built a historical educational system that continues to give us the same results time and time again. And so without challenging systems and barriers and policies, we won't get the results that we're wanting for equity. Equity includes the idea of inclusion. And I imagine that that's on your hearts and minds today, because you can't have a conversation around equity without having a conversation around inclusion. And inclusion really, truly is at the heart of equity, because it's the validation that every student matters and every student has access. Lake Washington has so many opportunities for students. It's incredible. It's a wealth of opportunities. Corvallis School District had a wealth of opportunities. Yet, some of our students were not gaining access. And that was the question that we had to take. Why are not all students not having access or able to obtain access? And what does that look like? And who are certain programs benefiting? And where is the glass ceiling for our students who are highly capable. How do we break through that glass ceiling? And how do we provide opportunities and access for all students? We had conducted a special ed report review, a full review, right when I stepped into Corvallis. And part of the reason I share this is I've read through the report and the review extensively that Lake Washington just conducted. When I entered Corvallis, we had a lineup of lawsuits ready. We had due process hearings. We had parents that were in tears. They had lacked trust. The communication wasn't there. They felt that everything was no, no, no. And I thought, I need to step back and I need to really evaluate this. I need to assess what's actually happening and where can we go to improve. And that review and study actually unveiled a host of opportunity across the district, not only for students with disabilities, but for all students, because equity inclusion is for all students. From that particular study, we ended up engaging community, and I probably am stepping into some other questions. But I do want you to know that as we engaged the community and created task forces, we were able to identify the professional needs for training and for mindset shift to create a culture of learners for our staff, for our parents, for our students, around what equity and inclusion actually means and what does that look like as we move forward in the technical fixes. Technical meaning systems and policy and procedures. What does it look like for co-teaching in the classrooms? What does it look like to have a multi-tiered response to students and where they are, and if they are needing acceleration or slow down or strategies? What does that look like? Do we have the systems in place?
So, Dr. Prince, we've asked our previous two candidates this question about what they know about dyslexia. And we have more than one person now that since we've asked that question, who want to know what you know about dyslexia. And so I'm going to pose a couple questions to you. Keeping in mind that 10 to 20% of the U.S. population has dyslexia, please make your best guess regarding the following. Question 1. In 2000, blank percent of the Texas prison population was determined to have dyslexia. What percentage?
Well, I know mental health for sure is a very high percentage in the prison population. I know that illiteracy in the prison population is generally around maybe 70 to 80%, very high illiteracy. I would assume that the very specific learning disability of dyslexia, maybe we're running 60% of that 70 to 80.
Good guess, 48%.
Okay, that's high. That's high.
In 2007, a study found that blank percent of U.S. entrepreneurs were determined to have dyslexia. What was that percentage?
I bet it's higher than what you're going to say because, the highly successful people that I know personally that have dyslexia are masters with strategies to cope and become incredibly successful. So I imagine it's higher. Probably the self-proclaimed folks that were part of this survey, I don't know, 10, 15%?
Well, you're close, 25%.
Okay, high, yep.
Well done.
So, okay.
Well done. Next question, what sets you apart as a leader and as a visionary?
Well, for one thing, I think that it's in my DNA, and I think that I live and breathe, and my passion really, truly is based around student success. So I use the word tenacious, and that tenacity of looking for creating systems, creating an environment that is conducive for student success. And what does that look like? We know that the single most influential factor for student success is how effective the classroom teacher is. And the second most influential factor is how effective the school leader is. So if you can create the environment for success for our teachers and leaders, then our students will show the outcomes in the end. And so for me, I can stand out as leader with very strong resolve around student-centered decision-making. And it's not uncommon, when I was superintendent in Corvallis, for my staff and leaders to hear me say, and how does that impact students? And this decision needs to be student-centered, whether it was negotiating a contract, whether it was looking at a school budget, whether it was looking at the district allocations of resources, whether it was looking at new innovations or practices or alignment of curriculum. Students come first. And so that is one area that I stand out. And as far as visionary, I have innovative mind. I like to think differently. I like to bring in business models into the education models because I believe that there's a lot to learn from entrepreneur and business in the world, that education has become stuck in many ways. And so I'm not afraid to innovate, and I'm not afraid to ask the question, why are we continuing to do the same thing over and over again? Because we're getting the same results.
Okay. The demography at the Lake Washington School District has changed rapidly in recent years, with longtime local residents and many new immigrant families working in high tech. This rapid change brings very diverse views and ideas of how education is and should be. This is the root of many challenges in terms of funding, curriculum, choice schools, etc. What's your experience on this? What solutions do you have to work with these differences in priorities and expectations among the new families coming to Lake Washington School District?
Well, this goes back to equity and inclusion, obviously. It is a culture that can and should be embraced. What we had in Corvallis was changing rapidly as well. Oregon State, with the new president of Ed Ray, he focused on international students, and the invitation and the growth was just astronomical and changed and shifted the culture very rapidly in a growing district in Corvallis. And how did we resolve that? Well, part of it was starting with staff and starting with that mindset of this is absolutely incredible. What an opportunity to have a global environment within a district where we can practice, we can grow, we can challenge students and each other to embrace the diversity and learn from each other and practice with adult care and compassion in an environment that will launch our students out to be even better prepared for the global world and the global competition. So in Corvallis, we really were missing opportunities to engage all families. And there was a disconnect, and there were siloed communities, and it just did not feel inclusive. And so one tactic we used is we very intentionally utilize some of our advocates within our parent groups and our staff to reach out to our communities, and our communities of color, our communities that spoke English as a second language, different countries that they were coming from, and we reached out and started to build connection and build relationships with trust. And part of what happened with this phenomenon was realizing that there were ways and different avenues to reach families. And we opened up the dialogue to find out how can we better serve your students and your family. What is going well with the district? What are your hopes for your children? And I had a couple of situations where we were reaching out to our Hispanic families, and we had moved to a digital one-to-one program with changing and shifting teaching and learning with digital tools. And our Hispanic families were sharing with us through some of these interactions the fear that they had that they would be left behind with their students moving so quickly in a global world? And how can they stay with us? And so part of our solution to that was to bring families together with their children in the school environment to feel more comfortable with the environment, fully in Spanish, fully engaged with their students, where the students are teaching their parents what's actually happening in school and using the iPad. We actually used like a technology hybrid where the parents and the students were actually working side by side, working digitally. And that we used over and over again. We had a high Arabic family population, and we did the same with the Arabic families. We would go in. I was the English speaker, so I had the translation. It was fully in Arabic, and we posed the questions. What's going well for your child? How are we doing right by your child? What are your hopes? What's missing? How can we do better? And that invitation and building a relationship was the beginning of inclusion and validating and having that welcoming feeling that it matters. Your voice matters, your child matters, and this world that we're creating in Lake Washington that will reflect out in the world as our students graduate is unique and very special.
Okay, thank you. How do you feel about supporting students who wish to pursue blue-collar careers? How would you support kids not destined for a four-year college or university?
I strongly believe in multiple pathways for students. Multiple platforms, multiple pathways. Every student has a story. Every student has a pathway, and it's going to look different. It's going to look different for the student that is absolutely engaged at a high academic level that is going to university. It is going to look different for the hands-on artist that wants to be an incredible artist and create with their hands. There's a pathway, and there's an opportunity for growth and success for all students. The example that I can use in how this looked in Corvallis when I was superintendent is we had an alternative program for high schoolers that just did not fit the mode of the traditional high school. And I would walk the halls of this alternative high school, and I'd talk with students as superintendent, and I would just ask them, how's this experience for you? Why are you here? And their response the first year I was there was, I'm invisible, I'm a dropout, I'm a failure, I'm not going to college, I don't fit. And I knew that these were lost students, and we absolutely, it's unacceptable. And so there were some things that I had to take drastic measures to stop that environment and culture where students believed this. So I put in place the most energetic believer of student principles into this alternative program. And I said, you are going to connect with every student, and you're going to hire the most dynamic staff, and no one will be invisible in this school. And what was so remarkable is that zero of these students were going to college that first year. The second and third year, over 70% were going on to at least community college where they were working toward trade, apprenticeship, certification programs, and on to four-year university. And that was just a quick turnaround, and it was because the adults cared and brought the hope back for the students, and they met them where they were. And these were brilliant students that just lost their way. And they needed that hope, and they needed that pathway that was okay for them for success, because it doesn't take just one pipeline. That's the one visual I just don't use. It's not a pipeline, because that's forcing everybody into one pipe. It's what you could call maybe a shoreline where everybody enters in at a different place, but the ultimate outcome is the same. We want success for our students.
The Parent-Teacher Association, PTA, currently enjoys a close and collaborative relationship with the district. How can we as parents, PTA leaders, have confidence this positive working relationship will continue on into the future with the new superintendent?
Well, if the superintendent is me, I can guarantee that will be happening. The single most important relationship in this organization are our parents and families. And the support that you already have is just amazing in Lake Washington. And so how do we build on that support? And how do we build and empower and enrich more and more families? And I guess the question would be is how inclusive are our PTAs, and how can we include more parents and families and community members to even be better at that relationship? So it's really a value add. There's the possibilities that our PTAs can be even better and even more empowering and even more influential. And I think that that is incredible. It takes a village, we know that, and I know that's thrown around loosely, but it takes a village. It takes all of us. The parent is the first teacher for every child, and we respect that and we honor that, and we're here to validate and listen to understand. And our PTAs are organized support to keep the direction going for student success. It's so empowering for children to know that we all have their back for success. And we're all in this together to create this success for them, that environment for success for every student.
Okay, thank you. Besides graduation rates, what other key performance indicators do you think is also important to help identify issues and gaps for improvements?
I think one of the most important factors is what are our students telling us, and so that would be one of the first assessments I make when I enter into Lake Washington. How do I get access to student voice? I want to hear from our students. I want to know what is their experience, how's it going, how can we be better. That's number one. Number two is really trying to find out how the health of our students are, not just academically, but how are they feeling? How is their well-being, social, emotional? What is the culture that they're coming to every single day in school? And how do you measure that? There's multiple ways. The biggest way is asking and making sure that we're asking the question continuously, and that our students and teachers have voice in the district so that we can better understand how we can tackle systems and barriers that perhaps are getting in the way of a true experience. Social emotional experience is just as important as the academic experience for our students to be global learners and global success. So it doesn't help to have these we had very high academic achievers in Corvallis, and we sadly had cluster of suicides. And we had to face that with the mental health of our students. And we had to combine all of our efforts collectively with our communities and our parents and our healthcare in Corvallis to pull together and listen to our students and create an environment that feels safe, secure, welcoming. Again, it goes back to inclusion.
A number of mental health questions have surfaced.
I segued well there.
Yes, you did. I'm going to combine two,
Okay.
and you may want to become a little more specific as these questions emerge here. What are the most significant challenges you think you'll face here as you encounter high expectations for academic achievement and high levels of student competition, student anxiety, depression, and suicide? And the other part of that is, what would you do to reduce the rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide among our students?
Let me go a little deeper. First of all, it's the adult connections matter. Each and every student should have at least one trusting adult in their life that they know is there for them. And so if that is through school staff, through parent and community, through Boys and Girls Club, wherever we can secure that relationship, we need to make that a priority. Second, we have to work together. And I would use the example, and I'll go back to the suicide cluster that we had with Corvallis, Oregon State University. We had a community college local. I remember driving down the freeway and just making the phone call to the CEO of Good Samaritan and just getting him on the phone and saying, we need a lunch meeting today, and we need all of the people that are the decision-making factors in Benton County Health, all of the private and public health care officials within the area, the counselors, everybody that we can get around the table, because we have a crisis at hand and we need to be proactive, and we need to set aside job roles and titles and funding status or whatever is getting in the way. We need to get together at the table. At lunch that day, we had about 40 people around the table. That's how critical this was. We had the conversation around what services are you providing and how are they overlapping, and how do we get after this issue of the health and welfare of our precious students that we're losing. And so we started an action plan, but that wasn't fast enough. Again, incremental change is okay for some things. The safety and welfare of our kids, that has to be transformational and now. So I recall, just a tiny snippet, sitting in the counseling office of one of our high schools as superintendent, sitting on a couch after losing another life of a student. It was devastating. I had Benton County Health official on one side of me, and I had our private practice of mental health on the other side of me. And I recall so clearly saying, what is it going to take for the two of you and your organizations to play fair for students and for our children? I said, we have the facilities, we have access to the students, I will give you space. I will provide you funding sources and resources. But you need to come to the table as partners with the district, because we have the students, and we're not going to lose another student under my watch. And it happened. We had public-private coming in. We were serving students on campus. We were being really proactive with the emergency room, systems that have perpetually been in place that I, as a superintendent, was not aware of had an impact. So if a student was struggling emotionally or mentally and was thinking about taking or doing harm, they would go to the emergency room, and there were policies and procedures in place at the emergency room I was not aware of that perpetuated isolation and just having those conversations with the medical field and bringing that bridge together and connecting the conversations of how can we work together for the betterment of our students' health and welfare. It's opening those conversations, it's bringing community together and having the same outcome for student success.
Okay, thank you. How would you transform the Lake Washington School District from relying on separate classrooms to empowering general ed teachers and special ed teachers to collaborate and welcome kids with significant disabilities to general ed classrooms in their home schools?
I can say that we were successful and getting probably about 75% to 80% of the way there when I was superintendent in Corvallis. We did the review. We landed on recommendations. We built up our principals' capability of understanding special education. We brought in special training tools. They created small groups of principals so that they could do some case study law and just really get comfortable being the first point of contact for parents, because our principals really are our first point of contact for parents when there's some frustration or where there's some struggling. And that relationship right there between parents in the school and the principal really started to build that trust and the confidence. And so that was one, just really building that relationship. And then looking at multi-tiered. So we brought SWIFT, and some of you may or may not be aware of SWIFT, but SWIFT is really kind of this process of looking at just what we heard. How do you be fully inclusive where it's a partnership for all students with gen ed and with special ed. And what does that look like? Well, it looks like having systems in place, and it looks like a lot of training, changing the culture and mindset so that every single staff member truly believes that inclusion matters, that inclusion means validating and everybody belongs. And what does that look like? Now, there's still a continuum of services because, again, it's what is best for the student. And there's this huge opportunity that we found in Corvallis where we were co-teaching with ELL and we were co-teaching with special education, more adults collaborating because they're all our students. They're not special ed students. They're not, highly capable students. They're not siloed. We need to stop compartmentalizing our students and meet them where they are on a continuum of services. And so in Corvallis, we were very successful in the co-teaching model. I've been out of the district for 2 years. I checked in with our, I stay really connected with the team down there. I said, how's it going? And they said they are really close to where they're really meeting the needs of the kids in a fully inclusion model. They're not quite there yet. But the teachers have received this training, and there's such a wealth of professionalism in being able to work with colleagues and work with special ed teachers who understand dyslexia really, really well and understand the disabilities and the strategies needed and how amazing that environment becomes for all students to have those strategies and to have the expertise in a co-teaching model.
Okay, thank you. We're nearing the end of the time allotted for this interview, this town hall meeting, but I have a couple questions for you, and then you'll have a minute to close, okay? What is your favorite program from any of the previous districts you've worked in that you believe would benefit Lake Washington School District?
Aside from the kindergarten class that I always enter into because there's sheer joy of learning with our 5-year-olds. They haven't been squashed or molded or changed, right? There's pure sense of learning. So our kindergarten classes is my go-to when the politics and when the budget woes and all of the pieces that weigh heavy on a superintendent's mind. I will go and sit myself down in a kindergarten class and refocus and re-energize. In Corvallis, my favorite program was probably the alternative program that I discussed earlier for the high school students, because every student there had a personalized learning pathway that was of incredible value, and they had champions from AmeriCorps, from the university, from business and industry, so it was just a compilation of bringing in partners and community and many adults to surround themselves around the success of the students. And we were able to bring programs to students, horticulture, hands-on woodworking. We created in the middle of the city a 1-acre urban farm where they would conduct growing from farming, seed to growth of produce, and then they would sell at the farmer's market. So there was some business entrepreneurship. It was this small area of innovation where you felt like we were getting it right for students and they were thriving. And these were students that, 4 years prior said, I'm invisible and there's no hope for me. So by far, that to me is a place that needs to be replicated in every single school, in every single district, because we can do that. We can make it an incredibly vibrant, energy-filled learning experience for students, and we must. We can't risk disengaging students any longer.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're near the end, and you may incorporate this question and your response in your closing remarks. After leaving to work in the nonprofit sector, why return as a superintendent now?
Well, as I said, the superintendency, I was absolutely thriving, loving. We were making change happen for students. I was enticed and recruited out of the superintendency because I felt like I could make a difference at the state and national level through legislation and change a policy in Oregon that would allow more of that innovation to touch all 197 school districts. And in my career, it was always, what's the sphere of influence? I didn't want to leave classroom teaching. I had 30 of the, I felt like I was forming and molding, and there was such joy. But as soon as I became an administrator of a building, that sphere of influence grew. And then a district, the sphere of influence grew. And then for the state, I successfully helped pass 182, Senate Bill 182, and the IGA was signed. And now Chalkboard Advocacy, the nonprofit, is moving and impacting. And honestly, the joy of the work is in the field. And so I am so excited to get back into the work where it is happening and to have that interface with students, teachers, community, business members. And that is why I'm back here. Now, I will wrap this into why Lake Washington. Whether it's this job, which I feel I am, with my experiences and my passion, the right match for Lake Washington. The board needs to make the decision if I am the right match for them and for the community. I feel that this is the right time, the right match for me, for my energy, my passion. Whether it's Lake Washington within a month or a couple of weeks, or next year or 3 years, my husband and I are committed to coming and making Washington our home. I want to be in Washington. I want this position to be able to bring that joy, make a difference, have some connection and influence in in the state of Washington from Oregon and my experience in Oregon for the next 10 years. And so I have much to offer, and that is what I would bring. And why Washington? It's the family roots. It's where we're going to be, and I would love it to be in Lake Washington.
Thank you, Dr. Prince. Appreciate that.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.